Welcome to Developing the Leader Within podcast, the podcast that brings you leadership insights from the brightest minds shaping our world. Join us as we dive into conversation with trailblazers, innovators, and change makers, spanning every corner of the globe. Get ready to explore new perspectives, gain actionable insights, and become the leader the world needs today. Unleash your potential. Tune into Developing the Leader Within podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Let's embark on this transformative journey together. Developing the Leader Within podcast, leading beyond the limits.
Welcome back, everyone. If you haven't subscribed, please do so right now, as it'll help us getting our show to others and help us reach our next milestone. Make sure to catch us streaming on Parade Deck, on Roku, and Amazon Fire TV on the Purpose Place Network, and catch our exclusive members-only content Going Deeper Within on the Lions Guide Academy. And today, we are speaking with Joy Mcadams. Now, Joy is the owner of Jay Mcadams Consulting. She is a TEDx speaker and an Ironman competitor. She also helps practices put together specialized marketing and business strategies that bring them back to life and produce growth. Joy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege. And I just love how, from connections on LinkedIn, they turn into real life relationships and friendships. And that's kind of what we'll get into today, too, as we talk about strategies.
Absolutely. And it's been, it's kind of funny to say joy, but it has been a joy meeting you and sharing time with you and watching you effectively navigate not only marketing, but the business landscape and all the things that you're involved with. So kudos to you on that. And folks, we will be speaking about marketing mastery for leaders. Stand out, sell more, lead better. But before we get into that, Joy, tell us a little bit about you.
My kind of claim to impact was growing my community here on LinkedIn. It started back probably about 5.5 years ago. I decided to take my community on a journey of pursuing a growth mindset through physical challenge, and ended up taking them on my attempt at my first marathon. And that just kind of spiraled from there. And now here I am about 5.5 years later, 5 Ironman world championships later, and countless races. And just really that concept really stuck because it worked. And I truly believe that when we challenge ourselves physically, we have no choice but to grow. And it's just something now that I've kept consistently in my life because it rolls over to every area of business, personal relationships, being a mom, family relationships, all the things. So that's kind of how I came to be here on LinkedIn.
Oh, and it's amazing. I've watched your journey. I've watched several of those Ironman completions as we now see the videos and the pictures. And so we applaud you and we are cheering you on as well. And I'm happy that you're doing it because I don't have to.
Exactly.
But we talk about marketing, we talk about leadership, we talk about the things that spark trends among leaders and the leadership community. So what are the top 3 marketing trends leaders should focus on today to stay relevant and visible in their industries?
That's funny. So I work in the world of healthcare. As you mentioned, I grow, specifically personalized and specialized medical practices. And, up to this point, I was really big, and I still am really big on the relationship building. But what's been an eye-opener for me, and something that I kind of shied away from because it was my weakness, but now I am starting to really dive in and experience and grow more in this area, is just the data. I mean, having the data to support and to help point your teams in the right direction. I say it's my weakness because I'm such a relational type of person, and I love to be out building the relationships. And yes, that is going to bring in the business, bring in the sales, but sometimes you'll be shooting in the dark, or you can't really quantify your efforts, especially when it comes to maybe being purchased by private equity or growing a practice, if you're not really really deep into that data, to help direct you, to help quantify, to help show your success. And so that's been an area personally for me that I've been working on more and growing in, is learning, what kind of data, and the relevance, and learning how to navigate and use all these different systems and programs. So definitely data. Then the second one I would say is the personalization, that kind of goes into the relationship building, which is what I just spoke to, is really making this a personal experience for your client, for that ideal person you're trying to reach, because that's what differentiates you, right? So since I am working in a specialized, personalized, private practice type of setting, that's what sets us apart from the big healthcare systems, right? Is that personalization approach, that you can get in with us same day or next day, right? You're not going to have to be on a waiting list for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 weeks just to get in to see one of our providers. And then once you get in, that that relationship that you build with our doctors, so that you do feel like a name and not just a number, right? That's huge. That's so important, especially when we're talking about health issues, right? And so that personalization, I think, of the product or the service or whatever it is that you're offering is so, so important. And then I think engaging now, with the world of social media that we've seen, engaging content, right? I mean, engaging content. I know we'll get into storytelling and things like that more, but like, what's gonna make them want to come to you? What's gonna capture their attention? We're in a world now where people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. What is your content like, to be compelling, to be relatable? And that's so important. So I would definitely break that down to the data, the personalization, and then the engaging content and outreach.
Yeah, very powerful three, and a combination that will definitely help you as leaders. I do know that when you're talking about personalization, it matters. It matters to know, hey, I remember your birthday was coming up, right? Yeah, those things like that spark a conversation within a conversation that facilitates, both parties benefiting, right? Maybe it's not to, galvanize a sale that moment, but it does leave that little tick mark in somebody's mind that, like, man, you know what? I've never talked to a business person that remembered that my birthday, and it sets you apart. So great three. I love those, and thank you for sharing that. Now, you talked about social media. You are a person that I would say has built a strong personal brand, not just the business side, but what you've done. And you talked about it earlier. I'm taking people on this journey, and that is really what it's all about. So how can leaders build a strong personal brand that aligns with their organization's marketing strategy as well?
I think one of the biggest things and challenges for leaders is they want to come across as strong, because obviously, they want everybody to look to them. They want to lead, they want to be respected. But what they don't understand is being authentic and being vulnerable and sharing the struggles, sharing the journey, like we're saying, is what actually builds the respect, right? No one can relate to someone who shows up, that final product perfect, look at this, I'm a stone wall. Like, no one can relate to that, right? But everybody can relate to, here's the failures that I had en route to building what we have now, right? Here's what I'm struggling with. I talk a lot to doing a lot of athletics, and some of the most powerful posts from some of these top athletes is when they do get on there and they post about how they're struggling with confidence, they're struggling with depression, they're struggling with all these things. And you look at these top athletes and you're like, I would never imagine that's them, but that's what makes you respect them more, right? Because you're like, they're just human too, and they're fighting through this, just like me, and it makes you very relatable. So as a leader, I think it's so important, to kind of be open about where you came from and all the struggles that you had to get there. And then when you do make mistakes as a leader, to be humble enough to say, you know what, maybe that wasn't the best strategy that we took on. Maybe it did end up being a failure, and I apologize. We're going to regroup and do this instead of trying to make excuses or blame it on your team. Take the full responsibility, right? And I think, that type of thing is what really makes people respect leaders more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are times in our lives that, I'm going through one right now, right? Totally broken inside. Family is suffering, and we may, come off as strong and everything is well put, but it's those times where people really get to see your humanity. And I remember having conversations with people that would come in, let's say, late, right? And I would say, "Hey, we're going to talk, but it's not because you was late. It's because I was late once too, and many a times. And so we're going to converse about how I overcame that so that you can have the same opportunity. Those conversations
I love
like
that.
that
I
is
love that.
is the stuff that makes you years apart from anybody else around there. So thanks for sharing that. Now, storytelling. Let's talk about storytelling because, right, we're talking stories. But what role does storytelling play in marketing leadership, and how can leaders craft their narrative to engage their audience?
So storytelling is from the beginning of time, right? The master storyteller was Jesus in the Bible, right? He parables, and it just shows that if the master of the universe who created us saw the importance and the value in storytelling, then obviously there's a clue there that that is powerful, right? Storytelling is so powerful. I say this phrase all the time that services and brands are boring, right? But people are interesting. Stories are interesting. That's what draws us in, at any age. And so, going back to, let's tell the story of a company. How did it come to be? What were the failures that led to finally having the success? I think we all know Sarah Blakely and Spanx, and we love hearing her story, how she would go around with a little Ziploc bag, knocking on doors, trying to sell this product. And all of that is what makes us love her and makes us love her brand. It's not just looking at this final billionaire now here at the end. It's going back and imagining, oh my goodness, I can't imagine she did all that, right? It's so powerful, and it's so important that we incorporate that because it tells everything for sure.
Yeah, and we do love that story. Also, Jesse as well,
Yeah,
his going up, and a dynamic duo there. We love them. Outliers, right, fellow outliers that are in our community. But Joy, you mentioned earlier on the social media aspect for leaders and how important that is. So, how can leaders effectively leverage social media without feeling overwhelmed by constant content creation? Because I know it
right.
runs through a lot of their brains.
Right, right. So there's a love hate now for me with all the new AI, right? Because I mean, some of the systems and the programs that are coming out with AI, I mean, you just type in a thought and tell it a little bit about your business, and boom, it's giving you all types of ideas, creating the content calendar. I mean, all of that. It's amazing, the resources. So I would definitely start diving into those systems, learning or getting your team to learn those systems. It's going to make everything so effective and so much more efficient and spark ideas. But at the same time, we don't want to lose that human factor, that personalization. Because I know for me, depending, for my personal brand, I can't plan a calendar months out, right? Because a lot of what makes my content authentic is what I'm facing. Like for instance, I mean, you just faced a really big, something in your life that you were not expecting, and where you are right now emotionally, where you are physically is is such a place that could be so impactful, right? And so when we create content out of what we're currently overcoming and facing and thinking and feeling, it's so much more authentic and so much more powerful and so much more effective. So while we need to take advantage of those tools, especially for a big company, at the same time, we want to make sure that we're still keeping that human touch, that authenticity, that it's not just robotic, you know? But yeah, there's a lot of resources out there now to make it a lot easier.
Yes, and I'm blown away at the
It,
things that
it's crazy.
AI is. There are people making movies
Yeah,
using AI, never
yeah,
really directed anything, to just
right.
interesting and making sure it has what the vision is, and the things that are coming out are amazing. So yeah, great tool, leaders, for you to go embrace and learn about. Also your teams. It's going to really put you at the edge of what's going on now. We spoke about trends before, but
Yeah,
it is one of those things that is here to stay. I do not see that being separated, because everything is hinged on that now. Now,
absolutely.
we talk about successes, we talk about the greatness of leaders and all this, but we often don't talk about mistakes and things like that. So, what are the biggest mistakes leaders make when trying to market themselves or their businesses?
I think, like I've alluded to, is just marketing this perfect end product, right? Instead of taking people on the journey, and also not reverse engineering the sale. So you really have to take the time and jump into analyzing, who am I trying to sell to? You know, what is their demographic? What is their psyche? What are their pain points? How am I solving that? And maybe even just get a study group and really understand, not selling what you want to sell, selling what they want to buy. You know, there's a big difference. And really taking the time to understand that. And now in this age of social media, there's so many ways you can test that, just by testing different messaging, testing different demographics, getting the responses, focus groups, just really understanding, why would they want to buy from you? Not why you think they want to buy from you, but why do they really want to buy from you? And breaking that down becomes very powerful.
Absolutely. Knowing your audience, folks, is where it's at. You mentioned Joy data in the beginning. Knowing that information, knowing who you're talking to. In standard leadership jargon, right? It's knowing who you are serving. And
Yeah.
these people are wanting your product, but if you're selling it to somebody else, you won't sell and they will
Yeah.
not satisfy. Actually, nobody wins, right? So thank you for sharing that. Now, Joe, I know that in your life, professionally, personally, and otherwise, you are so busy doing many things. So I want to give you this opportunity to tell us what do you have coming up, and where can the viewer or the listener follow or support you?
So I am really big, as much as I love marketing and I'm passionate about growing, private healthcare and all of that. I've also really just become so passionate about the people, right? And their personal development and their growth, and making sure they have true joy and drive in their life. And like I alluded to in the beginning, a growth mindset through physical challenge to me was such a life changer for me. It made me reframe anything hard as an opportunity to grow. And when you stop and think about that, anything hard in our life and we see it as an opportunity to grow, it means that truly nothing bad can happen to us, right? I've had incredible athletes recently on my show who were paralyzed, and then after they're paralyzed, they got diagnosed with breast cancer, and then out of all that, they end up creating a foundation, and it's like, wow, look what came out of what somebody would say your life's over, I mean, like, it just reframes everything. And so right now, as I continue this athletic journey, I have partnered with a woman who I met at the end of 2023. It was her first attempt at completing the Ironman World Championship. She has multiple sclerosis. She's a single mom, a domestic violence survivor. She also has a pacemaker, has had 6 heart surgeries. And yet, this crazy girl, her dream is to finish the Ironman World Championship. And on her solo attempt, she had a lot of physical issues come up because obviously the heat in Kona magnifies the symptoms, and a lot went on. She finished the swim and bike, but was not able to finish the run um, because of a time specification. And so after having her on the podcast and seeing her fight, I was like, you know what, girl, I want to make this happen for you. So I've volunteered to be her guide. We've raced in Oregon together to kind of prove, where we are so far in her fitness. It got dark at times, but we got through it. And now our next big goal is to get her across that finish line. And the big thing for her, and the reason she's fighting so hard, is because she understands what it's like to have a physical challenge that, could make you feel like, what's my point anymore? Like what's my worth here anymore? Like, this is too much. It's too overwhelming. So she's going over and above to show people that no, this is actually an opportunity to show the world that it's important to keep fighting to inspire other people to have impact. And so that's why I'm so committed to helping her achieve this big dream. But we do have fundraising because we're doing it through the Ironman Foundation, which they go into communities and they provide a lot of service to these challenge athletes. So we have some fundraising left. We have a deadline coming up, but I would love for you to go support this journey, to show her support. Because like I said, this is for anybody facing physical challenge, to remind them to keep fighting, because challenge is your opportunity to grow.
Absolutely wonderful story, and one that I'm sure most people can get behind. Now, I also know that you have an event in South Florida coming up as well, right?
Yeah, so we also do. I had the privilege of doing my TEDx in Boca Raton at the TEDx Boca, and since that time, Cindy Metzler and Dennis and Eric, we have kind of put together like a speaker program to help train speakers to learn the format, hone their speaking skills, to be able to submit and hopefully land their own TEDx eventually. But the speaker event, they get to come and practice. We've had like an 8-week program. All the things we've gone over, these speeches are going to be amazing. From our last speaker group, 3 of them have already landed their TED Talks. So it shows that these messages are powerful. They're great. It's an incredible event. So please, if you want to find out more about that, you can reach out to me. I know this is airing after that event, but be looking for those events. We do them quite often there at the Boca Raton Innovation Center.
Outstanding. Well, folks, we will have all of that information as part of the show notes and video for you to help and support Joy on all her endeavors and also these events that are coming up. Folks, we want to thank you for joining us. Today's episode is sponsored by the Global Trends Magazine, the Outlier Project, Fantail Services, Southern Sweet and Sassy Coffee, Ascend Meditations, and Chop AI. And if you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know by leaving a comment. And tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you. And I want to be mindful that in this week, I will be laying to rest my father-in-law, a Korean War Army veteran, and he is going to be missed. Jose Ismael Rodriguez Torres.